And there we go. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's module. When you are recording as much as I am, well, actually, no, when you're stuck, I actually don't want to call this the dungeon because I love my office, right? My office is the third and fourth floor of my house. I love this place. It's like my man cave. The point is, when you're stuck in the man cave for 6 months, you don't see anyone or see any friends for basically 6 months because you're working day and night on this thing. You start to go a little bit crazy, so I apologize for that wacky intro. We are about to get into another amazing module here inside of Agency Navigator. So before I lose my mind anymore, let's get straight into it. So in today's module, we are going over Social Engineering 101. So in today's teaching, we're going to go over why most entrepreneurs struggle to maintain a social life, how to order your social circle, how to properly cut out friends in your life, appeasing your family and why it doesn't matter, setting expectations clearly, setting batch social events, and finding an accountability partner. So building your circle. Let's talk about that, right? And this is actually a little scene from a TV series called Entourage. It's one of the few TV series I actually watched. And in fact, I actually watched this for the first time in 2019 after a recommendation from a buddy. And it's, disregard some of the debauchery and stuff like that in there, right? But, really what it is just a group of good friends who are loyal to each other through ups and downs. And they just have a great time, right? And it's not like a game of looking at, who brings what to the table and this and that. It's like everyone brings their own thing, and that doesn't always necessarily mean success and money. And I love that. Well, let's talk about this whole concept of you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with, because I'm curious, does your social circle look like this?
The next level is coming.
Or does your social circle look like this? Now, the reason I say all of this is because technically I would say in my closer circle, and not my acquaintances and this and that, because, I have a great network, but I'm talking about the people who, the whole saying, you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Okay, let's look at the 5 people who I spend the most time with, right? Definitely on paper, I'm the most accomplished out of all of them, right? Some of my friends are, going to and studying and, are getting their law degrees, and they're going to be some of the top lawyers in the world. Same thing when it comes to, studying to become doctors, and they're going to be incredible doctors. And everyone sort of got their own life path and stuff like that. But currently, the people who I spend the most time with, definitely by far, you could say I'm the most accomplished. And the reason I say all this is because you guys are probably thinking, E-Man, his closest friends are all, multi-millionaires or super successful. And yeah, I have a lot of buddies like that, but funnily enough, they're not the people I spend the most amount of time with. The people that I spend the most amount of time with are my day ones, right? So to put that into context, as I said, I had some financial issues growing up, and a lot of my friends who I now treat and gift, they were the ones who used to take care of me when I had nothing, right? The roles are reversed. And the thing is, these people we have so many shared experiences together. We laugh, we have so much joy. And every time I see them, I'm just filled up with so much energy, joy, laughter, etc., etc. And these people know my boundaries. They know what is acceptable for me and what isn't acceptable for me, and they know where I want to get to in life, and they're there to aid me. And it's funny because, as I said, I know so many of you guys are like, but that makes no sense. You're the sum of the 5 people you hang around with. And technically, and once again, I don't mean this in any bad way. If I look at the sum of the 5 people that I'm around with, because I guess in general, you would say for a 21-year-old, I have achieved, I feel as though it's safe to say, extraordinary results, right? Resounding results in my life, my business, et cetera, my health, whatnot. And I guess if you would look at my friends, you would say, well, actually, no, they drag you down. And fuck that. They don't drag me down at all. I love my friends to bits. And the people I spend the people who I associate with, my 5 closest friends, as I said, they fill me up with so much energy, laughter, joy. Right. And it's funny because a lot of times I actually actively avoid, 7, 8, 9-figure entrepreneurs. Less so if they're in sort of the online, offline space, but especially sort of online entrepreneurs. I'll be honest, in the past, I've never really gone along with them that well, right? And that's because a lot of times, and by the way, in all fairness, here's me pointing the finger, but let me point the finger back at myself. It's funny, when I was first getting started in business, I'd say 2016, 2017, 2018, very quickly within meeting me, you would know how much money I was making, right? Or I would find a way to lace into conversation, this and that.
Impressive. Very nice.
It's funny, when I meet people these days, right, and it's kind of been like this 2019, 2020, and 2021, when I meet people these days, most of the time, they're like, oh, what do you do? What do you do for work? I'm like, oh, I work at a company called IG Media. They're like, awesome, right? The way that I frame that basically sounds that I'm an employee at a company, right? Because I just don't really need people knowing my shit and stuff like that. So, let me not just solely point the finger, but the reason I say this is because a lot of entrepreneurs are stuck in the phase, online entrepreneurs are stuck in the phase that I used to be stuck in, where everything's about money, right? Everything's about like, hey, I have this friendship just so we can drive each other forward. And guys, sometimes it's not that. Like sometimes you just need to hang out with your friends, laugh your fucking ass off, have a great time, etc., etc. And it doesn't all need to be this like rigid thing, like, oh, your network is your net worth. Like, I'll be honest, especially in this business, guys, it'd be different, I think, if we were real estate agents or we were lawyers, this, that. I think in those industries, your network is your net worth. In this industry, I've honestly realized like your network kind of means fucking nothing. Like and I have some very high level people in my life, right? And I said they're not the 5 people I spend the most time with, but I have a lot of acquaintances. I'll be honest, I can't think of many people that have actually brought much value to my life in terms of like connections or this, that. Like in our business, we just need to do what I do, right? You sit down at your computer and you just chip away at it, right? So for that reason, I think there's this really big misconception that like, if your high school best friend, just because he's going to college, right? Just because he's going to college, but he makes you laugh. You guys can talk about not only, sort of your dreams and your aspirations, but you can also talk about like your feelings and your emotion, especially for guys, that's so important and not enough guys do it. And, they aid you in everything that you do and they're supportive, even if maybe some things you do, they don't understand fully. But then you guys can also poke fun at each other and you don't take it too personal. If you've got that sort of friend, don't let some fucking idiot entrepreneur, who's like, your network is your net worth. Like you are the sum of the 5. Like, no, right? Like the thing you need in your life more than anything is people who fill you up, right? And people who give you this, like this feeling of joy, right? And that's really why I wanted to start off with this, is because, I know that a lot of you were thinking like my network is like, no guys, like my network is crazy, but the people that I spend the 5 people that I spend the most time with, technically they would have dragged me down, but not at all. They fill, they fill me up with energy and with joy. So let's move on to auditing your social circle. Now, what is a situation where you need to audit and reevaluate if someone is worth it to be in your social circle? Well, if they are jealous or negative about you or towards you or say this about you, as you start to level up, because that's not a true friend. And with these people, cut them out immediately, right? Because as I said, the people that the people that I hang around with the most, they saw me, like they've seen me since the beginning. When I was building my business, I was struggling for all these years. So now when they see me succeed, they're so proud of me, right? And they don't think that my success is a reflection on them, right? So that's the biggest thing to watch out for. If someone is jealous or negative about you or even just like plays down some of your accomplishments. If they ever say anything like, oh, you're lucky or it's because of this, fuck them, get them out. Get out! Out! Now, the next thing is boundaries, right? If they keep asking you to play video games or, they keep, trying to convince you to have beer with them on a Tuesday and you said, hey, that's just not really like, I'm not about that anymore, and they keep pushing you and keep trying to distract you with it, then it might be worth it to cut them out as well. No, it might be, then definitely cut them out after you've had, several repeat warnings. For example, my friends know Monday to Friday, don't invite me to drinks because I'm just not going to come, right? Like my friends don't even bother inviting me because they just know midweek, like I'm not really going to hang out and have a drink with the boys or like, go to a party or go to a club or something like that. That's just not, that's just not part of what I do, my boundaries, like it's just not part of my schedule. And the next thing where you need to reassess is if their worldview is radically different to yours. It doesn't mean one worldview is right or it isn't. But for example, if they think that the rich are crooks, if they're constantly talking about things that are going on in the news, if they're complaining about like, if they're just gossiping, if they're also, complaining about taxes and this and that, like if you guys have radically different worldviews, realistically, I don't think you guys are going to go far together. Now, I have friends of mine, like I said, my close circle, where we have opposing worldviews, but it's actually very interesting. Like I find it very interesting to hear their worldview, and they find it very interesting to hear my worldview. Now, I'd say if it was on the totally different ends of the spectrum, right? I don't believe I'm not left wing or right wing, right? Like, actually, I'm not left wing or right wing. I'm anti government. But anyways, that's a story for another day. If one of your friends has super leftist traits, and one person has super right, traits on the right, like, I don't know, maybe that's probably not going to be a good combination, right? Whereas, as I said, I'm not particularly left leaning or right leaning. I'd say I'm fiscally right leaning. I'm socially more left leaning. But fundamentally, I disdain government. Like, basically, the root of all evil is government, by the way. And most people mistake capitalism. They mistake the capitalism that we have now, which isn't real capitalism, like real free markets. That's the way that's the best solution to anything, right? And a lot of people don't realize that, we're going more and more towards communism, right? I'm very lucky that my mom grew up in the Soviet Union, so she knows what real communism looks like. And she's like, yeah, that's communism. That's basically Soviet propaganda. This is what propaganda looks like. This is what communism looks like. And a lot of people don't really realize that. But anyways, reason I say this is because I have friends of mine who have pretty different worldviews. And even when it comes to things like nutrition, diet, exercise, when it comes to like, so many different topics. Like I have opinions on, and my friends have opinions on, and we can bounce back and forth. But if I had a friend who was so on the opposite side of all my worldviews and it kept causing too many clashes, or if I felt as though I had to tiptoe around subjects in front of them, then I don't think realistically we would form a really good bond. And if it's something where you guys keep butting heads, then it may be worth it to, kind of look elsewhere. And, really just to circle back and to touch on this again, if they drag you into behavior you don't want to do. So for example, if you notice that, really, whether they're really pushing you or not, like whether, maybe some of your friends are the reason that you keep smoking weed and you don't want to smoke weed anymore, or maybe your friends are the reason that you keep drinking and you just don't really want to drink anymore in your life, right? So things like that, if they keep dragging you into behaviors that aren't favorable to you and you don't want in your life, then cut them out. Now, what you want to look for in friends is supportive, right? Now, your friends may not necessarily agree with everything that you're doing. And I've had friends, my friends have disagreed with a lot of what I've done in the past, but they're supportive nonetheless throughout that process. Another thing is you want people who are special, right? And the thing is, a lot of the entrepreneurial space, they think like, oh, it's about how much money you're making. That makes you a special person. Look, the people I respect the most, like literally, I'm thinking about the 2 or 3 people that I would go to for advice regardless, and all of them make less money than me. And by the way, I have friends who are worth hundreds of millions, multiple of them, right? So for me, the people that I look to in awe are, men who are 10, 15 years older than me that embody the characteristics and the traits that I want to embody. And if you put me next to them, it doesn't matter. Like our bank accounts are totally drastically different. And, mine many times, many multiples on the upside compared to theirs. Yet if you put me and them in a room together, it's quite clear they're a grown ass man, and I'm still in a lot of ways a boy, right? And I'm still coming into my manhood, right? Even though I'm 21, I've experienced a lot. And if you put me next to most 21-year-olds, I'm always called a very old soul. But there's levels to anything in life, right? People always say there's levels to money, and there's levels to shit. Well, there's also levels to your self-development, right? And there's also levels to the way that you carry yourself. And by the way, that means as a man or a woman, obviously, I happen to be a man, right? So there's ways that you carry yourself. So as I said, for me, all of my friends are A1 in some way, right? So I have friends of mine who are so ridiculously funny, right? And when I'm around them, it inspires me to be more humorous because, I sit at my desk 12 hours a day. Most of the time I'm a bit of a robot, et cetera, et cetera. And they inspire me by just how good they are I have friends of mine who are incredible, in university, not doing anything special with their life, but are incredible storytellers, The entire room gets drawn to them as they tell their story, and, they tell tales, and they bring people into conversation and this and that, right? As I said, all of you people around you, once you get to a certain level, should be spectacular, should be A1 at something. It just, that thing that they're spectacular at doesn't need to be business or money, right? So just, really, really just bear that in mind. And the last thing that I really want to touch on is all of your friends should have integrity towards themselves and integrity towards others. So if there's any situation, by the way, like I've had, I can condone, venting to other people, right? Because, there are trials and tribulations through a friendship. But the thing that I will never stand for is talking behind my back and not bring up directly to me. I've had friends say stuff to other people about our friendship and then bring that up to me directly, right? That's totally fine, right? And that's normal. That's people, as I said, it's kind of, if you've had a friendship for a long time, it's like a little mini marriage almost, right? You're going to have your ups, your downs. You're going to have like times where you get frustrated with the other person. You just need to, talk to someone else about it, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm talking if someone talks behind your back consistently and then is two-faced towards you, that cut out, right? Because that is not a good sign of integrity. Another example of, not having integrity is, all of my friends say, please, thank you. They're polite to the waiter. They're polite to, the super successful business person, that I introduced them to at one of my parties. And as I said, they treat both with the same level of respect. And to me, that's what integrity is. Now, let's quickly go through how to cut out friends. Because, this is the Instagram bullshit you see out there. If I cut you off, chances are you handed me the scissors. The saddest thing about betrayal is that it never comes from your enemies. I go from zero to fuck everybody real quick. Guys, this does not work, all right? The issue is you carry so much pain with you and you're likely to piss off people, which causes this, right? An energetic pendulum, right? So you can see right here with this energetic pendulum, basically what happens is it swings, right? So you're pushing this pain towards them and you're basically you're just being passive aggressive when you cut them off. And then they're going to sense that and it's just going to build this energetic pendulum such as this, right? So instead, what you need to do, the way you successfully cut out a friend without making it a huge headache is like this, right? You treat them like a frog. And here's what I mean. The way it goes when you kill a frog is that if you put it in lukewarm water, right? Or if you put it in cold water, it doesn't do anything, right? It just stays there. But if you put it in hot water, of course, it just jumps straight out. But if you put it in, room temperature water and you slowly bring out the temperature, then eventually, it comes to the end of its life. Right. And that in a weird way is how you actually cut out friends. Right. You don't just throw them into the, a hot piping a pot of, rejection and, passive aggressiveness and this stuff. Instead, you place them in, you act like, everything is totally fine. You're not like, this is not you being passive aggressive or talking behind their back or this, that, but slowly you just phase them out and you do it unemotionally so you don't cause this energetic pendulum. Because ladies and gentlemen, these energetic pendulums, whether it's from friends, whether it's from, spouses, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it may be, these things really fuck you up. Like if anyone's been through a really sort of rough breakup where, the energetic pendulum kept swinging, or if anyone's been through, the end of a friendship where that's, the same sort of thing applies, right, that it's something that can drag you down for weeks, months, et cetera, et cetera. So you really, really want to avoid that energetic pendulum. Now, let's talk about how to deal with toxic family. And real quick, let me talk about my situation, how I dealt with it. So I'll be honest, when I first started my business, and especially as I wanted to, drop out of school, et cetera, my mom wasn't the biggest fan of it. So for her, it was a personal thing because, she, guys, I can't even put into words the amount of pain and anguish and trauma she had to go through to get me to a place where, we left Russia, we ended up in London. She stayed in this horrible abusive marriage for fucking 15 years or something like that, or just so I could go to private school. And to see me in her mind, waste it all away was almost a reflection on her. Right. So, any things that she ever said to me as I was growing my business was never what she thought about me. It was more a reflection on just how scared she was that everything she had done for me would have been for nothing. And the reason I tell you this is because you need to understand a lot of what your parents are saying to you. A lot of times, actually, I'd say probably 80% of the time, it has nothing to do with you. If they're saying anything about your business, if they're saying anything about the fact that you're not going to college, if that happens to be the case, if they're saying anything about like the fact that you just left your job and, because you're making more money from your agency now, and they're like, oh, this is just a scam. This is just a gimmick, blah, blah. This will be gone in next year or something like that. Just understand most of the time that's a reflection on them rather than a reflection on yourself. Right? And they're just living out their past beliefs, traumas, et cetera, through you. So here's basically how to deal with it. First of all is success. Now, look, at the end of the day, you need to understand the sooner you're successful with the agency, it gets to the point where what are they really going to say, right? It gets to the point where you have such irrefutable success that, like, what are they going to say, right? You kind of prove them wrong, and just remember that's not what it's about here. We're not trying to prove anyone wrong here, but just understand it gets to a point where you get to a point where you've done so well that you silence basically every single critic. And as I said, if you go against your family's best wishes in order to do it, which, as I said, sometimes you got to do what's best for you, understand that the sooner you get to a point where you're successful with your agency, obviously the sooner that will, hush, and, the sooner that will quieten your family, right? And the sooner that will repair that relationship if you've kind of gone against what their wishes in order to build this agency for yourself. The next thing to keep in mind, right, is lifeline. How much of a lifeline are your parents to you? Are you still living under their roof? Are they still, giving you money every month? Are they, like, how much of a lifeline are they? In my situation, I remember growing up, my mom always said, she was like, you can make your own decisions once you start making your own money. And I was like, all right, that was like 12 or 13. I was like, all right, bet, watch me, right? And it got to a point where at 16, I was, 15, 16, I was supporting myself. By the age of 17, I was supporting myself and her. So there's not much that you could say, right? There was like, we had special circumstances in that situation. But with you, let's say you're building your agency, you're 17 years old, and your parents are getting pissed at you that you're not focusing on school, right? And then you kind of live under their roof. So you have to appease them more than I did, right? Yes, I was living under my mother's roof, but like, I was supporting myself. And that's different if you're 26 and your parents are, giving you some shit that you left your job and you're building on this agency. At the end of the day, like, your parents, like, they should trust you, right? And, they're not a lifeline to you. You can survive without them, right? So, if it's a little rough for a few months or a year with your parents, at the end of the day, like, if your parents can't deal with what is best for you in your gut instinct and your heart of hearts, then, maybe they should learn their lesson, and, they should learn that, look, it's not really their place to say. The next thing is for those of you guys in college. Now, if you're in college just to appease your parents and you're paying for it, get out, right? And it's not what you want to do. If you're studying a degree that you love and you just want to build an agency on the side, then bless you, keep going for it, right? I'm happy for you. But if you're in college and you hate it and you're just there to make your parents happy and you're taking on student loans and student debt, what are you doing? Get out. Get out! Out! Right? Now, if your parents are paying for your college tuition, then maybe get through it, appease them, right? And just build your agency on the side. The next piece of advice that I can give you is integration, because from the age of 14, 15, I would actually, my mom and I would always have lunch together, and I'd actually put on the TV, like I'd hook the back of the TV, the HDMI cable, to my old computer, and I would actually play YouTube videos, right, of business people, fitness people, like self-help stuff, et cetera, so she could get a feel for finance people, so she could get a feel for that entire world and realize that, hey, the only way, it's not that the only way in life to make money now is be a doctor or be a lawyer, right? Even, I think I mentioned in one of the other modules, my intention growing up was initially to get into real estate, like become a real estate agent right after school, because my mom wasn't going to pay for my college, so I definitely wasn't going to, my mom couldn't afford to pay for my college, so no chance in hell I was going to take on student debt. So I was going to become a real estate agent for 10, 15 years, learn the trade, and then start investing in real estate myself. So, every single lunch I would watch a $1 million listing, in America. They have the show $1 Million Listing, right? And you can see some of the commissions that some of these real estate agents are getting. They're getting like $50,000 commission, $300,000 commission, like just crazy commissions on these houses that they were selling. And I would always play that so she could see, like, look, I don't need to go to college and I can build up. And doesn't mean I'm going to earn $50,000 commissions from day one. It might take me 10 years to get to that point, or 5 years or however long. But at least there's other paths, right? So you really want to give your parents as best integration as possible so they can start to understand this weird, wacky world that you're operating in, and really the new paradigm we're in, and really just the new world we're in when it comes to business, career, et cetera, et cetera. And as I said, really just to reinstate this, you need to understand the psychology behind why your family is dragging you down, right? 80% of the time, it has nothing to do. It's merely a reflection of their past beliefs, how they, remember I mentioned earlier, how you envision a path for some parents that, they literally from the second their child is born, they're like, all right, doctor, right? And that's all they can think of. Or they want, their kid to go into the family trade, and that's all they can think about. It's all they obsess about, right? You were the chosen one! So for them, the fact that you're veering off of that course can be shit scary to them, right? So just understand most of the time they don't actually mean any of, if they're saying nasty things to you, which, even my mom, she's apologized since then, not that I feel as though she needs to, because I understand that it wasn't a reflection on me, it was a reflection on her. said horrible things to me, right? When I told her I was going to drop out, and we fought for, our relationship was really shaky for like 9 months, a year. And that's crazy because me and my mom have such a close relationship. So yeah, you really, you need to understand kind of where it's coming from. Now let's talk about how to get the most out of your social life. Now the first thing is boundaries, right? Over the years, and you might not like the fact that I'm using this word, but in the same way, they need to do the same to you, right? So it applies on both sides. You need to almost train your friends on what you will and what you won't accept, right? Things that you will accept talking about, like for example, I won't accept just gossiping, right, for no reason, or complaining or this or that. But I will accept a really good, engaging conversation where we go back and forth on our different perspectives. And over the years, you need to kind of train them, and they need to understand. One of the funniest things is people feel a lot of pressure to respond. Like, it's a well-known fact. Like, my friends actually freak out if I respond within a day. Like, they think something's wrong if I respond in a day, right? Most of the times, if it's my mom, she gets a response within a day. If it's my close friends, they get a response within 3-4 days. If it's like a better sort of acquaintance, it's within a week. And if it's someone, outside of that sphere, maybe 3 weeks, a month, right? And there's periods of my life where you can double or triple those times because I'm so busy, right? So that's the main thing. You need to train them on what you will, won't accept, what your character is like, and how you guys can kind of, how your lives can kind of intertwine. And by the way, they'll do this opposite to you, right? And let's say, for example, they ever talk about something you don't like. The easiest way to kind of set the boundary and so they can understand is you don't need to be like, hey, that's a boundary of mine, I won't talk about that. Just go quiet, disengage from the conversation, right? For example, if they start talking about needless politics or something like that, just go quiet, disengage from the conversation, and they'll kind of get the point. The next thing is standards. As I said, you really need to make it clear what sort of standards you hold yourself to. My friends know that they're not going to get a response from me before 12 or 1 p.m. because my phone is in my vault, right? And they're never going to get emotional or angry about it. The other thing is my friends also understand that, really from Thursday night to Sunday night, don't ask me if I want to hang out because, I won't be available. I won't be free. The next thing that's super important is to almost build out your persona, right? Like, because people, and this kind of goes back to the whole responding thing. People know that the way that I built my character, and by the way, this not only goes for now, you might be going, yeah, but Eman, that's because you're super successful. I'm like, this is still the same when I was like in 2016, 2017, right? When I was building up my businesses. People know that, I'm very busy and I don't really respond to people straight away. So as you build up this sort of persona or this image, right? You've got your self-image, the way that you view yourself, but then you've also got, your general image, how other people view you. You can sort of start to build that and mold that so that way people know the way that they should act around you. And that's something that really takes years and years to build, is to build almost this aura around yourself. Now, in terms of sort of growing your actual network, I have a lot of, I don't mean this in a bad way at all, right? I have a sort of, I guess it makes sense, right? If you have like a circle and then you've got different rings inside, like I've got my close friends here, and then I've got sort of my second zone, or, we'll call it first zone. So I've got my close friends, my first zone, second zone, third zone of friends, acquaintances, network, et cetera, right? And these are people I still want to build and maintain relationships with, but, there's only so much time in a week. So one of the most important things you can do, and by the way, this is sort of something more advanced and that you can focus on later down the line, is batching, right? And having sort of larger events. So for example, usually every 2 to 3 weeks, I'll host drinks at my house, and, I'll do that and I'll invite 20, 30 people. And a lot of these are sort of more removed friends and acquaintances that, I would love to keep a relationship with, but, I don't really have the time just to meet one-on-one for a coffee with them, right? And the thing is, usually every 2-3 weeks, it's a totally different group, or for the most part, like 70-80% different, right? So it's not the same people. So, and the other benefit of that is you're introducing a lot of people, and that also gives you a lot of social credit and a lot of social value, because you are the person, you're the connector that have connected all of these people together. Now, if you don't have space to, meet all these people at yours, and you have to really host a drinks at your house or something like that, for example, not only that, and you don't have money to do something like, in 2019, every single Friday, I would do an afternoon tea at the private room at the Wolseley or the Connaught. And, this would cost me anywhere from $500 to $1,000 because I would pay for everyone, it would be comped on me. But it was a great sort of business tool, great sort of networking tool. I introduced a bunch of people to each other. I introduced, some of my model friends, and, these girls met, some of my business friends, and these business friends met some of my friends in the nightlife and hospitality industry. And, everyone just kind of mixed together. And, these people met some of my friends who are like artists and, singers, et cetera, et cetera. And, all these people sort of mingled together. It was super awesome thing. Now, you can do a downscaled version of that. You don't need to pay for everyone. Just, next time you want to meet up for a coffee, invite 2 other people, or maybe invite 4 other people, and let everyone kind of mingle and meet together. It's super, super valuable. You kind of get to batch and kind of get to see more people and more friends in the same amount of time. And all in all, it's a really big treat. Now, next up, let's talk about finding and building allies. Now, guys, use this community to find an accountability partner. Now, you're going to see a lot of the stuff in this course is like, you might look at even certain modules, especially because of the video, right? And you might be like, I swear this one's recorded, this module in this phase is recorded as the same module in this phase. Like everything's kind of disjointed, right? I've had to basically do slides for the most part first for the course because, the software, the platform took 18 months to build out and it's still under construction, right? So when we launch it, you might be listening to this, a year after we launch, and we already have the accountability partner function. In that case, you should be able to use it, and it would have been in the first sort of phase, or not phase, but like the first section of the course, where I explain exactly how to use the platform and all the features of the platform. But if you're just watching this and this is just coming out, just know we have an accountability feature, coming out, rolling out pretty soon. So you'll be able to input some details, and we'll actually match you up with the best accountability partner we can find. But for now, if you want an accountability partner, all you do, just go to the community and just say, hey, I'm looking for an accountability partner. This is where I live. This is sort of what I want out of an accountability partner, maybe to speak daily and check in with each other, or, and just do that via WhatsApp, or maybe just once a week. Just have a longer Zoom call and talk about the week, whatever it may be, really. And then lastly, just throw in a fun fact about yourself, right? Just so people can get a real feel for your character, and, so people can get a feel for whether you guys would jive together. And just go ahead and post that in the group, and someone will match up with you, and you guys can exchange details, et cetera, et cetera. And as I said, you can do that for now. But if you're watching this, a few months after the course comes out, the accountability function should be there. So you can actually just use that tool, and we'll match you up with someone. Now, in the sort of ideal world, in my opinion, you guys should do a weekly call together, for 30 or 45 minutes. Really just go over your week, talk about, your wins, your losses, what you could have done better, what you're going to focus on next week. That way you're really keeping each other accountable, right? And I would say do that weekly, but then outside of that, just send each other a daily message at the end of the day. Just go, yes, today's mission was this. And yes, I accomplished it, and or no, I didn't accomplish it. And if I didn't accomplish it, why did I not accomplish it? Ladies and gentlemen, having an accountability partner will be single-handedly one of the best things that you do. In this community, you have the course, you have the software, you have the tools, you have the platform, you have the community, you've got the coaches, you've got the recordings of the Q&A calls. But now you also have a peer who's going to drive you forward. So ladies and gents, today's action step is post in the group to find an accountability partner and set up your weekly calls and messaging with them. So ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this module. I hope you took a lot away from it, and I'll see you guys in the next one.